Professor Bhakdi, before we begin, what is particularly important to you about this conversation today? What should the viewers take away from it in the end?
You should take away that the evidence is now so overwhelming. It is clear that the time has come to act and to put a stop sign in front of the entire vaccination campaign to enforce this legally.
Right at the beginning, very motivating words. You have had an extraordinary journey. You taught for many years at the universities of Mainz, Gießen, and also Kiel, and trained many medical professionals. When you look back on your journey, which experience influenced your thinking the most?
These corona years, of course, and profoundly. I once wrote a book, my wife, 10 years ago, about infections in general, written in a way that is easy for the public to understand. It lists all important bacteria, viruses, and also parasites, and explains the diseases briefly and concisely. We have shown that most infectious agents are harmless and only a few are dangerous, but we will manage with them. And in the book, vaccinations still played a pretty big role because I was a conventional doctor and I passed on the knowledge in the book that I had taught for 20 years or 30 years. The knowledge has changed, and that was like an earthquake for me because I had to re-educate myself. I had to re-educate myself as a retired teaching professional about my own field. And I really have to say, this came about through this vaccination against corona, which I was extremely critical of, and simply I was afraid of this vaccination. And then it turned out that the other vaccinations, which I had recommended so often and so much across the board, yes, are also not so great. Some are even bad. And I completely corrected that in the book, and the new book in which these corrections appeared came out in August 2025. And this is it. I wrote that with Karina because it was a need for me to correct my mistakes. And in there it says about all vaccinations now what I believe the truth is. And
we'll come back to that in more detail shortly. It's not common for someone with so much experience and after such a long time of teaching to change their opinion. If you have now changed your views, perhaps even significantly, what standards or foundations do you use for that? So what do you base your orientation on?
Every vaccination that should be recommended and is recommended by a doctor must rest on three pillars, yes? First, the necessity, meaning, is it necessary to vaccinate? Do we need a vaccine? We only need a vaccine if it is a highly dangerous infectious agent, yes. For example, tetanus. The pathogen is truly dangerous to the public because it produces its toxin, and this toxin is deadly, yes, or rabies. Rabies is a virus that when it enters the body and reaches the brain, it is 100% fatal. And there you can say, yes, the necessity for a vaccine exists, and if we have one that is effective, that is now the second pillar. The vaccine must be effective and must actually reduce the number of severely ill and dead. To demonstrate this, you need studies with two groups, the vaccinated and the unvaccinated. And then it must be shown that the vaccinated are relatively protected. This type of study has not been conducted for any vaccine so far. That's what I realized when I went into the literature, and it was shocking. Yes, the third pillar is safety. That means, is this vaccine tolerated across the board? Very well tolerated tolerated or moderately well tolerated? And is this risk of vaccine side effects in an acceptable proportion to the benefit? That is, are the risks so small that the benefit outweighs them or not? And here I really have to say I was shocked again, because there is no study, not for any vaccination, that truly weighs risks and benefits against each other. And we have laid this out in this book for all vaccinations. And the conclusion is, for no vaccination, yes, are the three pillars rock solid. And that is, of course, a disaster.
Before we delve deeper into the vaccination, we can lay the groundwork so that we can engage all viewers. It's about basic infections in general, beyond headlines and fear. And that is precisely the core of your book, understanding infection instead of fearing myths, delusions, and realities. And it was first published in the year 2016. You also mentioned that at the beginning. And now it has been completely revised and reissued, fully supplemented, like a phoenix rising from the ashes. What are infections, and what does it mean, in your view, to understand them instead of fearing them?
Infection means the invasion and multiplication of an infectious agent in our body. The penetration, of course, needs to be viewed a bit more in a differentiated way. We have surfaces that are exposed to the environment. The skin is more so, then the respiratory tract, and then the gastrointestinal tract. And when a pathogen, only the surfaces colonize, infect means they multiply there. But now comes a bit of a definition. What is penetration? Do they have to penetrate the mucous membranes themselves? If yes, then actually only viruses do it, right? Bacteria mostly stay on the surface. And then we talk about colonization, right? Colonization is not really an infection, and this colonization is very useful. We need the bacteria on our skin, on our mucous membranes, in our gastrointestinal tract. They also multiply there, and we explain that in the book. This type of colonization, where the bacteria are simply our guests, yes, at home. Our intestines are basically their home, and they stay with us for life. And they do us a lot of good, right? They produce substances that are important for us. They mainly keep harmful bacteria away because there is competition for living space. The surface of our skin is also colonized with very useful bacteria, right? One should not go and constantly disinfect the skin. I mean, that's almost the dumbest thing one can do. And my mother was a doctor and my first teacher, and she said, a little dirt is healthy, it's good. Don't be so afraid of it. And that is what we also say in this book. Most bacteria and most viruses, well over 99%, are not dangerous. And the ones that are dangerous are known. And for almost all of them, we know why they are dangerous. That was science, not anymore today. Today, real science basically no longer exists. Science is dead, the real one, because scientists have become corrupt, yes, and they no longer act honestly. This is a very bad situation. That is what we experienced, the so-called pandemic, which was actually a plandemic. This has all come out and is known now, right? So, that is something fundamental I wanted to say. The dangerous bacteria are known. Why and how they work is also known. And we have explained that in this book, yes? The dangerous viruses are known. And it is known that in principle, epidemics, outbreaks, can only happen in two ways. Namely, through the airways or the gastrointestinal tract. The main causes of gastrointestinal tract-related diseases, such as diarrhea, were contaminated water. And since there is water hygiene, since it is known that the water must be clean, infections like cholera have disappeared naturally, yes? Because cholera only spread through water. Nothing else works.
And viruses that are dangerous either come through the air, but there are actually extremely few of those.
One could say probably the flu is the only potentially truly dangerous one, but it is dangerous only because the viruses, when they infect the tissue in the lungs, yes, lead to the destruction of lung cells and tissue.
And then bacteria comes and causes superinfection. That means they colonize the slightly damaged lung.
And these bacteria, they produce toxins, and the toxins kill people. Yes. So it was also 100 years ago, during the Great Flu pandemic, that people did not die because of the virus, but because of the bacteria that came and caused a superinfection. Yes, that is one of the causes of the pandemic. There are other causes that I will not go into now. By the way, a third author of the book is Klaus Köhnlein from Kiel, whom you surely also know, the great master Klaus Köhnlein, who already said 30 years ago that this HIV, yes, is a fraud virus.
It's not there at all. It's not true. It's and he was right, wasn't he?
The same Klaus Köhnlein is a co-author of this book and has contributed really nicely. He said back then that one of the causes of the pandemic from 1918 to 22 was the mass vaccination of people with a very, very dangerous, untested vaccine. And it might be that he was right. So, but now back to the virus. The other viruses are not life-threatening, yes. The viruses that cause diarrhea today are all basically harmless. And therefore, there is absolutely no need to make a vaccine, for example, against diarrhea pathogens, norovirus, yes, the main cause of diarrhea in children. To promote and recommend a vaccine against it, as this STIKO does, is actually punishable.
Because without a vaccine, even being critically examined, it is recommended without necessity. That is not acceptable. And in this book, we also explain that
there is no longer any virus, except perhaps rabies, where a real necessity exists. And therefore, there is no necessity for vaccinations against viruses. And now I have said something very, very provocative. Yes? I invite my esteemed colleagues to discuss this with me. Yes?
And secondly, there is no pandemic. There is no possibility of a pandemic as long as the stuff is not spread by human hands. Yes.
The moment people go and deliberately spread pathogens into the air so that people get sick, that is global war. That is a bioweapon. That is a bioweapon-led war. And this whole corona story has been a bioweapon war. This is completely known to insiders. The virus is a laboratory product. The vaccine is a laboratory product. And so all the people involved actually belong behind bars. So I had to get that off my chest. There was no pandemic, there is no pandemic, and there will never be a pandemic, and anyone who claims otherwise is lying, and anyone who lies is suspicious.
And indeed, when we talk about protection and leave vaccination aside for now, what do you consider to be sensible protective measures or principles that anyone could implement when dealing with infections with the topic? Is there something?
Sure, lead a healthy life, period.
Where do you generally see the benefit of vaccination, if there is any at all, and where is the risk?
Also, these gene-based vaccinations are a matter close to my heart. This is covered in this book, and we have agreed with Mr. Kopf that this chapter, 7 pages, yes, will be made available for free download to everyone in the world.
Every one of our viewers can now simply click on the Kopf Verlag website for our book sample reading.
And there we also explain why this vaccination is so incredibly dangerous. So now I will take you back to textbook knowledge. Specifically for the upper grades, this is a chromosome.
Genes are lined up on the chromosomes. There's a gene, there's a gene, there's a gene.
When a gene is needed, when this code is needed, then this code here in the middle is transcribed into mRNA. This is the corresponding mRNA to this code. Right?
And when this mRNA is formed, it detaches, goes into the cell, the book of life is closed again, and the mRNA causes the production of the protein.
So, no, the following is very, very important. Thanks to genetic technologies, it is possible today to know any gene and the entire gene sequence in humans, yes.
One of the leaders of this Human Genome Project is a certain Kevin McKernan, and he is one of the most renowned and outstanding, knowledgeable molecular biologists in the world. Kevin McKernan is also someone who does this kind of thing with ease.
Namely, one can
Genes of their wishes.
Artificial.
produce. If you want to produce this gene, there are machines for that. And in these machines, you can produce these genes in isolation. Isolated. It's like a printer. I mean, Johannes Gutenberg would have been very, very happy to hear that. And then you basically have this matrix, and with this matrix, you can also produce RNA also in a machine, yes. And then you can detach this mRNA. You can use the mRNA for whatever you want, and the DNA template can be destroyed. It's very simple. There is an enzyme that snips it away, and then you have it back. Well, a prerequisite for the whole thing to be used as a vaccine is that you have to replace one letter, and that is this U, yes, with an artificial U. That is uridine, that is pseudo-uridine. Also, an artificial thing made by humans, which does not occur in normal mRNA. But this is necessary because the mRNA that is artificially made must live long, relatively long, longer than normal HRN. And this U makes that possible.
The Nobel Prize was also awarded last year to the people who invented it, yes, who introduced it like this, because what you do is that is
mRNA, this is not mRNA now, but Moderna, modified because it contains pseudouridine, long-lasting, it is packaged. This is the packaging, the so-called lipid nanoparticles, and then they are sent on their way into the body by being injected into the arm, yes. And the first truly shocking lie, when it was introduced right at the beginning was, and when I heard that, I said, something's not right here, folks. Yes, the reassurance that the stuff would stay in the arm, in the muscles. Yes, I mean, who could even believe something like that?
Which doctor can believe that? Any doctor would immediately fail the exam if they said that, but it was accepted. It was so unbelievable to me, yes. Folks, the earth is not a flat disk, it is round. Everyone knows that when you inject something into the muscles, it enters the bloodstream, of course.
And these
Envelopes are not injected individually. No, every shot, every injection contains billions. People, do you know what billions are? Billions is when you start counting 1, 2, 3, 4, 5 now. You'll be 100 years old by the time you reach a billion. And it's not 1 billion being injected. Many billions are injected with trillions of this stuff. And they go throughout the whole body. And these damn envelopes, lipid nanoparticles, have a property that demands their prohibition. By the way, these envelopes were never approved for use in humans at all. The substances from which this thing is made are like plastic. They are very special fats that are life-threatening in themselves. You can kill animals with them. Yes, it has been done before. And yet people go there, the Standing Committee on Vaccination, and in general, the Paul Ehrlich Institute, and allow millions of people to be injected with trillions of these envelopes, which are already so highly toxic in themselves. My people, can you understand this? Whoever understands it, please get in touch with me and tell me why you understand it. I don't understand it. I didn't understand it. I will never understand. In any case, they allowed it. These envelopes are Trojan horses. When they arrive at a cell and knock, the cell gladly opens the door. Then they go in, and in this cell, these mRNA molecules, not one, not 100, not 1,000, but millions, are unpacked. And they are effective. And they are effective for a longer time than what was falsely told to you by the experts, by the authorities, by the doctors. The doctors didn't know anything anyway. They were completely ignorant. They couldn't inform themselves about these events because they didn't know themselves. And that's why, that was, by the way, also criminal, yes. People were vaccinated without real information. They couldn't be informed because the doctors themselves didn't know, folks, that there must be consequences, okay? So now I'll get to the conclusion shortly. The method of producing the vaccine against corona, so with artificial genes, where this is separated and this DNA is destroyed, is the process that officially was approved for the production of this vaccine, because the vaccine that is produced this way is relatively clean. Yes, has little or no DNA if done well, yes. And with that, they also vaccinated the first people. And the procedure was submitted and approved because people tolerated it relatively well. So, but when millions and billions of such vaccine doses had to be produced, we are talking about billions of doses. Yes, it was too expensive. And that's why the guys from BioNTech went and instead, to take genes, they took chromosomes from bacteria, and thanks to genetic technology, it is now possible at any time this is a chromosome from E. coli, a so-called plasmid, which can be opened. By the way, you can almost buy these plasmids in the supermarket. They are cheap, yes. They can be easily isolated in large quantities from bacteria, because when bacteria multiply, their chromosomes and plasmids also multiply, yes.
And these plasmids are very, very stable. Yes, you can bottle them and then you can open them. You can insert a foreign gene of your choice into this. Then you can close it up again, return it to bacteria, and the bacteria multiply. And with them this as well. From a bacterium, in 4 or 5 days, you can multiply enough bacteria in 5,000 liters that it would take millions of years to count from one to that number. Yes, not 100 years. And then you can take the bacteria and extract the plasmids because they are so stable. And these plasmids can be used as a template for the production of mRNA. And that's what the guys took and did. And they injected these billions of doses produced with an unapproved process. People, you have to let that sink in yet. Now, it is the case that the Kevin I mentioned, went 3 years ago and said, wait, I would like to know what is in these vaccine batches. And he was shocked because those who seek find, yes. And Kevin is a gene seeker. He helped determine the gene sequence of our chromosomes, yes, from A to Z, 13 years of work. A genius, this person, yes. He said, my God, is it possible that when you take chromosomes and produces it, that there is so much DNA that the conventional methods to completely remove, destroy, and eliminate the DNA did not really work, because that would have been expensive, yes. And then he found DNA, specifically remnants of these chromosomes. Remnants of chromosomes, small remnants, large remnants, entire remnants, terrible. And he was so shocked and alarmed because it is bad to inject bacterial chromosomes, especially when they are packaged in these lipid nanoparticles and then enter their cells. The incorporation of foreign chromosome or chromosome part, DNA, is identical to altering the genome. Yes, I mean, you don't need more than that. And he published that, but it was not taken seriously until some labs outside America and Canada reproduced it, including a lab that comes from our ranks, that is our In Morsia Institute for Molecular Diagnostics, led by members of our association, MWGFD, and we have also confirmed it. I say we, I didn't do it. Yes, I am retired. I no longer work in the lab, but my colleagues did. And by the way, they also work with Kevin. And it is all confirmed. And what happened then? Yes, the Paul Ehrlich Institute was contacted. The European Medicines Agency was contacted. And what did they say? They said, oh, this little bit of DNA, it doesn't matter. Yes, it doesn't do anything. Show, what does it do? And now, I really have to say, yes, at this point, we come to a topic that moves me extremely, because I have now spoken with lawyers who say that's not true now. At the moment, when an injected medicine, a substance, yes, known to contain something dangerous that can cause harm, it is a reversal of the burden of proof. That means those who do it must prove that it does nothing. Yes, they must prove it, not us, and certainly not the patients. Damn it. Where are we heading? With this point, I will soon come to the grand finale, yes? It was clear that the vaccine, since Kevin said that a criminal product, it is criminal, yes, manufactured with an unauthorized process and contains things that are quite obviously not safe. And without any proof at all. They didn't even conduct any animal tests of any kind, not a single animal test to see if something unpleasant, something genetic could happen. They didn't do it at all, and it is now documented everywhere that they didn't do it. So,
Is it so that
you know that Paul Schreier, with his truly splendid criminal complaints, managed to get the protocols of the corona meetings of the crisis team of the Robert Koch Institute released? And these RKI protocols are devastating. They essentially destroy the reputation of the RKI, the ministry, the entire ministry, and they destroy any trust
in which readers
before the authorities. All trust in politics and authorities is gone. And these RKI protocols have been summarized in a layperson-friendly form by Schlöffel, Markus Schlöffel, and Bastian Baruka. There are two books that I highly recommend.
Baruka and Schlöffel, the RKI protocols, because that is a self-indictment. It is documented that they not only knew everything from the beginning, but also planned it. The introduction of these vaccines was planned according to the protocol from the 27th of April 2020. I never tire of saying. It is also quoted here in this book, yes, in this chapter, which is available for free download. It is quoted, yes, the crisis team writes, it is known, people, that several vaccines will come. In April 2020, 7 months before the vaccine was even properly approved, it is known that several vaccines will come. And now the 7 words that are deadly for them, relevant data will only be collected post-marketing. 7 words, yes, for eternity. Because relevant data are data on efficacy and safety. They were not there. They did not exist. And in the further protocols, it is stated that they did not have that. They knew nothing about the effect and they knew nothing about the efficacy. Nothing. And they documented that, yes. Everything can be read because these protocols are now freely accessible, yes. and only post-marketing means the findings are collected from people.
This means the people are the test subjects. This means it is the largest conceivable human experiment of all time, yes. That represents Nuremberg. The Nuremberg Code no longer exists. They have torn it apart. And you must not, people. Yes, the Nuremberg Code applies worldwide. And it is indestructible. It is set in stone. Yes, you must not conduct human experiments. They did that. And indeed, people, how loud was safe and I'll get vaccinated, they even show off. Yeah. So, folks, and even to this day, this vaccine is still approved in Germany. Yes. I know that in America, there are now serious efforts underway to stop this mod RNA vaccination. Yes.
Now,
After all the shocking revelations came out with the Robert Koch protocols at the same time as our book. No, not anymore. A book came out last December, which I hold up here and recommend with everything I can recommend. It was quite clear that a mysterious organization was behind the entire vaccination program and that the government and authorities of Germany were obviously being directed by them. There had to be some kind of mafia involved, in whose grip Germany was also entangled.
Additionally, we also have an interview with him soon, so we don't even need to, we'll do that in more depth than if you...
Good, very good. It explains who this vaccine mafia is, what they have done, and how great the crimes against humanity have been. By the way, because I am already so far
This is the book by Robert Kennedy.
Yes, the real Anthony Fauci, because he is a central figure behind all these mafia-like organizations.
And this book should be required reading for all politicians and lawyers.
You probably don't know that it is now clear that Fauci is at the center of this bioweapons affair. We are now victims of a bioweapon attack, and this attack was co-planned and directed by him, yes, and you might know that this is actually inexcusable. The man actually deserves to be behind bars for life, and he should actually pay dearly for the damage. And that's why it was incredible. It's an event that put the lid on the pot. Joe Biden did in December of last year, yes?
Before Kennedy became Minister of Health, Fauci, what does that mean? Pardoned, and retroactively.
Pardoned.
10 years for everything he did. He cannot be held accountable. He cannot be convicted. That is American law. And I go around saying this is bad and at the same time good, because it shows how endangered these people are who participated. They are endangered because he couldn't pardon them all across the board. These are all the vaccine companies, right?
These are all the involved politicians. But of course also outside of America. And in America they are now on it. So now I come to the end, yes? They are really on it now. Why? Because people...
At the same time as this book by Helmut Sturz, The Vaccine Mafia, was published, a scientific publication by Kevin McKernan appeared.
The same. Kevin McKernan, always the same. And Kevin McKernan, with his colleague Jessica Rose, they asked themselves the following. An unauthorized procedure was used criminally, and that was the use of chromosomal bacterial DNA, right? Now, it is known that when you mRNA
Forms, and I repeat, forms, because this happens in our cells all the time, we form messenger RNA on our chromosomes, which goes into the cell. Then faulty products always arise, and these faulty products are messenger RNA that essentially take part of the chromosome, this DNA, with them. That is broken off, so to speak, a fragment. And these are so-called mRNA, DNA pairs or hybrids. And these hybrids are constantly forming in small numbers, like sparks from a Christmas candle. But they are dangerous, yes, because if they are not deleted, removed immediately, then they can start small fires in entire chromosomes. That means all genes, they spark. Yeah, and that's why we have ways, an enzyme, and this enzyme destroys or extinguishes these sparks immediately. That's why we stand and talk to each other and are happy, yes. But in models, for example, you can take cells and you can disrupt the whole thing so that they are not extinguished, and real fires occur, yes. And this leads to damage to the chromosomes, which can cause all sorts of harm, from death to malformation to cancer to autoimmune disease. The entire textbook of medicine, all diseases can arise depending on where these fires occur, in which chromosomes. All clear? So now Kevin McCann then goes and says, they have by the way, these hybrids arise only on chromosomes, never when artificial genes are used, never, yes, but only when they are on the strand, chromosome strand, not isolated. Wow, now a light bulb goes off for them. He wondered, you have taken chromosomes in prohibited or unauthorized ways. Could it be Could it be that hybrids have formed as they usually do when chromosomes, and these hybrids would then,
Hybrids of Moderna.
with the DNA strand which was broken? And he went with Jessica and seek, and you shall find. They found a massive amount of hybrids, and they were packaged in these envelopes. They were packaged.
They could not be removed by the normal removal of DNA. That does not remove the hybrids. And folks, you know, when these hybrids, and they will be, are delivered in these envelopes, then they enter the cell.
When they enter the cell, they will initially be in the cytosol, but with each cell division, the nuclear membrane disappears and everything in the cytosol has the opportunity to enter the nuclei of the daughter cell. And folks, believe me, there are incredibly many reasons to assume that the number of these hybrids entering the daughter cells and the presence of an artificial building block, it will lead to these hybrids not being sufficiently eliminated, not because our body's enzymes are not made to destroy this number and the pseudouridine. Do you understand that? I hope you understand that. They are no longer sparks. They are small fireballs.
And these fireballs can do anything the evil heart desires, sooner or later. That means because this method is needed
To produce all the RNA vaccines, no matter what for, not just corona, but now there's the flu vaccine based on mRNA, right? Boston must assume that all these vaccines will contain the packaged hybrids, and it is the damn duty of the authorities and, yes, the regulatory bodies to specifically check whether this is the case or not. And until that officially determined, a moratorium, a stop must be immediately imposed on all vaccinations. That means the billions of doses that were purchased and are now stored must not be administered. The injection is akin to attempted manslaughter or pre-murder, right? And my final appeal is this has been very good news, the discovery, because it demands that politics, society, and lawyers take action now. Namely, the authorities must be forced to take a look and not say, oh, it won't matter. Now, the time has come for the hunter to become the hunted. The hunter becomes the hunted. And the population will become, we will become the hunters. You will become the hunters. Not me. I am retired. Yes. But this discovery is the bullseye. It is the bullseye because now no doctor is allowed to inject. Every doctor who goes and injects this stuff, after everything I have said has become known, he will go down in history and indeed in the dark black books of world history. And I can only tell you, colleagues, this is not a good idea. Don't do it. Nothing. Don't do it for anything in the world. Not for money, not for gold, not for jewels, nothing. Don't do it. Don't do it to yourselves and don't do it to your loved ones, not to your family. Don't tarnish your name. And if you stop vaccinating, then this whole vaccination house of cards will collapse anyway. That will collapse. And it must, because only then can the WHO be stopped, can Fauci be stopped, can the mafia be stopped. They need this vaccination. Why they need the vaccination, we might explore further. But I want to stop now and say, now is the golden moment. Seize the opportunity.
I hope that this will also motivate many to become active again, and especially this motivation to use it again to become more active and also to take life back into one's own hands, because that's what the Atlas Initiative stands for: more self-determination and personal responsibility, principles that we may have somewhat stored away in our society.
I would like to say something. Yes, this clarification of the criminality behind it is now over, because everything has been clarified. Everything is known. And I can tell you that Helmut Sturz and I, we are publishers of a book that
Will be published relatively soon.
And there we have the
summarized the most important points very briefly in a generally understandable way. Yes, about why these vaccines are so dangerous, and that it was known long before their approval. We wrote that in our first book. Then that the protocols reveal that the whole thing is mafia-like, and we also summarize there simply 20 quotes from this Robert Koch with a brief explanation of what that means. Then the whole organization, this vaccine mafia, Helmut Sturz condensed his own book again so that it comes to, well, 40 pages. And then I explained this last discovery by McKernan in the final chapter, in a way that is understandable for all of you, so that really every high school student, even the teachers, will understand it. Yes. And whoever does not stand up, then I would say is literally to blame themselves and will also
Suffer for it.
Then we are very excited about this book, and perhaps another motivation. I have another member question, namely the term shedding appears in many discussions and often unsettles people in various ways. This usually refers to the idea that vaccinated individuals can transmit particles to others. How do you scientifically assess these statements? What is to be made of it?
So purely from a scientific perspective, theoretically, a transmission of these lipid nanoparticles, well, not now, again, the transmission of these lipid nanoparticles from person to person is certainly possible through intimate contact, yes? Because this stuff is found in semen and partially in saliva. That's why if you are together with someone, then I say you should protect yourself, yes? So there are ways to protect yourself during intimate contact, and then they won't get through.
Another possibility is, of course, blood transfusion.
And I think that is rightly feared by many. And my advice is, yes, find a clinic where you can do your own blood. Yes, autotransfusion. You donate yourself, then the matter is settled. Yes. And the authorities, the Red Cross and the blood donation service really refused to even determine who was vaccinated and who wasn't, because they said, it doesn't matter. It's short-lived. Yes. And this criminal act alone should actually be legally addressed. So, and they should damn well stop it now. Yes, well, I can only warn you. Then there is, of course, the possibility that in a secret way, without really being able to explain it. By the way, one last thing. It is known that these vaccines also go into breast milk. That's why, yes, the recommendation to vaccinate pregnant women was also criminal. That just can't be, yes. It cannot be true. The question is, if I go this way, there are other ways, namely through the air. And there is theoretically a possibility that our cells produce small vesicles all the time. Now we are not talking about lipid nanoparticles, but something similar. Namely, these vesicles contain materials from the cell, and these materials can also be mRNA, yes, or hybrids, whatever, yes. They fit. And these, like soap bubbles, the cell blows them out of the cell, out of the window, and these bubbles reach the outside world,
Yes. These are so-called exosomes, and they indeed serve the communication of cells that are far apart from each other. So cells exchange information from head to toe, including genetic information. You have to imagine that, yes.
Exosome research is new and quite advanced. And people ask me, should we be afraid? And I say, now I would take it slow, yes.
Because the dose makes the poison, and the amount of vaccine that can be transmitted from person to person is not known, but it will certainly be incredibly small. Yes, this vaccine is first absorbed in the mucous membranes, respiratory tract. That's the first thing. Yes, then the vaccine must, from there, basically, the mRNA must spread. That is not impossible, but it will not be very effective and is not very likely to lead to serious consequences. But, and here comes my but, yes.
You might know that in a frightening way.
Self-amplifying, that is self-replicating, Moderna vaccines have been invented and are already approved, yes? In Japan, for example, and in Germany and in Europe, the approval is essentially there for self-replicating vaccine. And such vaccines, they will replicate themselves, yeah. First in the nasal epithelium, and from there they will spread, yes? And people, I can only say, if you allow this.
Yes, God help.
I have another question about the structure of your book. You mentioned that you wrote it as a trio, and it is structured as a question and answer book. And you often switch between we and I. How can the reader recognize who is giving which answer at any given time?
Not much. Yes, we are three respondents. The reader asks, these are the questions that are actually in the general population, and we provide the answers. Mostly, I have to say, I am the one who answers. Sometimes Klaus Kühnlein is there, and sometimes my wife is also present, but we speak with one voice, okay?
With all the topics we have just discussed and you have explained, many people naturally become uncertain, especially because these are often different views from the majority opinion conveyed in media and politics. And as a result, one often loses trust in communication and also in science, as we have already mentioned. And many then turn to, or rather devote themselves to, the supposedly more objective sources of information like internet research, social media, or AI. How do you see the opportunities there, and where do you assess or see risks in this development?
The risks are infinite, yes, because this development has led to the people
as mass has been and is being led astray. And I strongly advise against doing that. Yes, of course, I can say, read our book. And I also say this book reflects the opinion of three people who are on it. My wife is a professor of biology, cell biology. Dr. Klaus Kühnlein is one of the most experienced doctors, internists, intensive care specialists, and sports medicine doctors in Germany. And I was considered quite knowledgeable in my field of infectious disease. And the answers given here are consensus answers from all of us, because we are all authors and everyone has said, yes, we stand by this, and we are also ready to sit in front of the experts on a panel and say, come on, yes, where is there a problem? Where is there a problem? Is where key, where the camp, where isn't he?
How do you assess the opportunities and risks when someone now turns more to the internet, social media, or, as mentioned, artificial intelligence, thinking they will get objective information there to make decisions? Do you see it that way too?
Of course, this danger exists, and we wrote this book to draw attention to this danger.
here we address infections overall, myth, delusion, and reality. And the moment when someone on the internet and in their research comes across myths or delusions come across, and the topics are all covered in the book. Yes, my God, actually, it is very similar to what they say in the book. That sounds like delusion. Yes, like a myth. Then he should be alert and say, wait, I will take care of reality. Myths, delusion, and reality. And
I cannot give more from myself, yes.
In conclusion, what would be the most important attitude that needs to change in society so that we can relearn how to deal with crises and health?
They must start to trust and believe the authorities so blindly.
Thank you very much. Professor Bhakdi, it was a great pleasure to talk with you about the various topics and especially this broad range of societal issues, topics important to the Atlas Initiative, but of course also the very important health topics we discussed. And we wish you continued strength and success in your endeavors and also in the upcoming trial, of course.
Thank you very much. All the best to everyone. Goodbye.